Excited to have Sean, the unpredictable one, Lally, back on the program, who will be facing Yann Oliveira next, May the 24th, for the middleweight title at Combat FC 7. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Thanks for having me back on. I'm excited to be here and talk about the upcoming fight.
Yeah, man, no doubt. Always great talking to you. And this will be your first time fighting for Combat FC. Exciting promotion here regionally. I'm sure maybe you've been to an event before, maybe one or two. Like, what's your excitement level like to fight for this promotion, for this title?
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to competing with Combat FC. I think I've actually been to three of their events, and it's been a great production. I watch all pieces of fight events when I go. It seems like it's well run. The audience is there, fired up, and the fights have been spectacular every time I've gone. Seems like they got some great matchups. So I'm excited to shake things up a little bit. I've fought for Cage Titans for years. And I thought that this was a great opportunity in a great way for me to just get a little bit of a change of pace.
For sure, that makes sense. And this will be in Wilmington, Massachusetts. How far is that from where you live? Do you anticipate having a lot of support there come fight night?
Yeah, so I'm only about 30 minutes away from Wilmington, and I think it's actually closer for a lot of my members of my gym, friends, family. I get a lot of people that come down from New Hampshire still, so it's actually, I think, a easier location for a lot of people to get to. And I expect to pack the house that night. I know I'm going to have a lot of people rooting me on there. And then it's on UFC Fight Pass too, which is great. So, my Army buddies and friends that I have in different parts of the country are going to be able to tune in as well, which is a little bit different than usual.
Yeah, that's exciting. And obviously being on UFC Fight Pass, just that kind of takes it to another level, right? Because no matter where you are in the world, you can tune in, watch the people that you support. And again, this being for the title main event here, big promotion. It's been 2 years since we've seen you fight last, Sean. I know you were supposed to fight Joe Giannetti for Cage Titans, and that fight fell through. I guess I don't really know the specifics as to what happened there. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more as to, why that fight was canceled?
Yeah, I'm he's in my rear view mirror, so I don't really have too much left to say about the situation. But the short of it was he seemed to think that he had an opportunity to fight on the Ultimate Fighter at 185 pounds, which I didn't think was very realistic for him, seeing that most of his career's been at 155. And he said himself many times that he's a small 170. So, that was the reason he pulled out. And he said that, he had a better opportunity. They didn't take him, which I kind of knew from the beginning that they wouldn't. And that's why I was so upset about the situation after putting all the time and effort and energy into getting ready for that fight. And, I originally wanted that fight because I thought he was a good challenge and a good matchup. And that's all I'm really interested in doing right now is fights that are exciting for the fans, that are exciting for me, that's exciting for New England MMA. But it fell through. And, I'm pretty much, he's in the rearview mirror. We're on to Jan.
Okay, fair enough. Again, as I mentioned, 2 years since your last fight, you had the win over Matt Denning. Do you believe in cage rust? Is that a thing? And do you feel like it could potentially, play a factor for you in this fight?
I think for some guys it does play a factor. I haven't found that I've ever really had much ring rust, or there is long periods of time that I haven't sparred over the last couple of years, and I go back into sparring and I feel like I was sparring the week before. I think that I started training when I was 15, right? And I think the 17 years of experience that I have in hand-to-hand combat and martial arts and fitness and military and everything like that prepares me to go in there and compete with the best of them at any time. And I'm never not training. So I'm always training at some capacity. I'm always improving my skills in one area or another. And I think it's actually benefited me at times to just train because I love it. I got my purple belt about a year ago, been doing a lot more jujitsu and grappling and just kind of finding ways to enjoy martial arts and strength training and overall just athletic training. And I think that just, it all compounds and it all adds up. And I don't, when I went in there with Denning, I think I had been on a maybe like a year and a half layoff, and I had fought Billy Goff. And when I fought Billy Goff, I was on a 2-year layoff, and we had a war and got fight of the night. And he's, of course, a game opponent. We see what he's done competing in the UFC now. So I don't think it's much of a factor for me, really. I don't feel any more type of pressure. I don't feel like I don't have my bearings when I'm in there. I feel like I'm pretty comfortable when I get back in.
And you're not old by any stretch of the imagination, right? But like, I guess as an active professional fighter, maybe you're getting to the latter part of your career. I think that's fair to say. How does your body feel right now? Do you still feel like a young man?
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely not old, but I'm not young either, especially for the fight game, right? I'm 33 years old. And I have been training and using my body hard for a very long time. But again, with all my experience as, a strength coach and personal trainer, what I know about the human body and fitness, I feel like I've done a really great job of keeping myself healthy over the years. And knock on wood, I've had very little injuries over the course of my career, besides some fight injuries, of course. But I think in some ways I'm even better than I was 5-10 years ago, because of the things that I do now. I mean, I haven't drank alcohol in 5 years. Right. I do breath work, and I've been doing that for years now. I got a sauna right behind me. I do the infrared sauna. I got an ice bath at my house. So like, I've learned and progressed like as an athlete. And I think because of that, I feel like I'm in my prime. And I think most people really should be in their prime between, 32 and 40 years old. Really, if you're taking care of yourself, that is the prime. I got my man strength now, whatever you want to call it, right? So I feel great. I feel physically great. My cardio is through the roof, and I feel like at one point in my life that was a place that I struggled a little bit more, and I just wasn't living as healthy of a lifestyle. I mean, when you're younger, you can get away with that a little bit, but as you get older, you really have to be aware of what you're putting into your body, and you're doing your mobility, and are you maybe hitting a yoga session or whatever. So I think I've just evolved as an athlete, and I believe that's going to show on May 24th.
That's great to hear, man. And obviously you see guys like Tom Brady that compete into their mid 40s at a high level. So who knows, maybe that athletic prime is being stretched a little bit nowadays with nutrition, recovery, and all of that stuff. You could have a lot longer than maybe you thought left to compete at a high level. So with that theme, Sean, I wanted to ask, the goals for you moving forward. Like, do you want to make another run at, potentially getting into the UFC? Like what's your mindset as far as all that goes?
Yeah, so this is where I'm at. A few years ago, I mean, we're probably talking like four years ago or stuff or so, after I had lost in the Contender Series, lost in Bellator, and then suffered an injury. I had to really sit back and reflect on what I wanted to do with my life, and like, did I want to continue to pursue the fight game? And of course, like, a huge part of me wanted to do that, but I also had been building a career as a personal trainer, and had met a awesome girl who's now my wife, and I wanted to build a life outside of martial arts and something that could coexist with it. I get to teach boxing every day, so I was happy enough putting my focus into business and into family. And now, because of that, I own a boxing gym. We're actually getting ready to we're looking at opening a second location. We're getting pretty close to making that happen. I got my wife and a beautiful baby and my older daughter. So I just had to really focus on that stuff for a while. But the dream of fighting in the UFC has never left. And I guess what I've been doing is kind of waiting, taking my time, and just being really tactical about the fights that I take. And, the JoJo fight I thought was a good opportunity to win a title, to beat a guy with, somewhat of a name. I thought that was a very winnable fight for me, too. I'm not interested in fighting guys with losing records. Matt Denning was a replacement. He wasn't necessarily the opponent that I wanted. Went in there and got the job done, of course, but I've been waiting for fights like this. I mean, since my fight in January fell through, I think I've been offered 4 different fights, and for little leagues, a league in Canada, one in Pennsylvania. It's like I have no interest in fighting outside of New England. I have no interest in fighting guys that aren't in that like top 10, 20 type ranking. I don't have any interest in fighting anywhere where my fans and friends and family can't come watch unless it was for a bigger promotion. So that being said, I'm just trying to chip away. And I think a big fight like this puts me back into that, realistic, realistic chance of getting back possibly onto a UFC undercard. I mean, I'll be sitting at 10-6 with a few knockouts, and it really puts me maybe one fight away, maybe 2 fights away. So I guess for me, it's taking fights that I could be satisfied walking away with, right? Like if I went in and won the title, I won't make any decisions that night. I that would be something I'd be proud of, and I could say, you know what, that's enough for me. Or I'm happy just sitting and waiting. Like I'm not gonna like fight and then like try to find the next fight right away. I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna win the belt, and then I'm gonna sit back and wait and see what other opportunities pop up. And if an opportunity that seems good pops up and gets me a little closer to that dream of fighting in the UFC, I'll take it. So it's not like my sole goal and my sole purpose, but it's definitely still right there for me. And I feel like I haven't put in the last 17 years of work to not take these types of opportunities at this point in my career, especially when I feel like I'm just coming into my own as a martial artist and as an athlete.
Great answer, man. How has your game evolved the most since we've seen you compete last? Is there a certain area where you feel like you've just grown a lot?
I think in general, I've just grown. I mean, like I said earlier, I think my conditioning is much better than it used to be, right? I think that's one factor. Um, my striking is much more smooth now. It's not like I used to be just chasing big overhands, chasing big punches. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. I'm much more tactical and dynamic with my striking now. I like to think I'm looser. I flow a little bit more, and I have upped my grappling game quite a bit. So I do think I've evolved everywhere as a martial artist. And MMA is one of those things where like it takes so long to master these arts that what you used to get away with as just being like an explosive, athletic, hard-hitting guy, like it's good to still have those things, but now those are the things I don't rely on those things anymore. So those are all things that I still have, that still exist. I know that at any point, if I have to brawl, if I have to throw haymakers, if I have to tuck my chin and go to fucking war, that I can. But that's not my game plan. That used to be my game plan, my strategy, right? That doesn't have to be my game plan anymore. Like I believe I can beat guys tactically and strategically and outwork them as a martial artist. And then I also know if push comes to shove, we can go into brawl mode and go into deep waters if necessary. So I just feel like I've evolved overall and just a lot more clarity when I spar and just clear vision and just moving differently.
How frequently do you spar now? Obviously, with all the responsibilities you have, owning the gym, coaching, doing, all the personal training and everything. What is that balance like to actually get the work in you need for a big fight like this?
Yeah. So, as far as sparring goes, I probably do like, one big glove sparring session a week and one more of a MMA sparring session a week. I I prefer to save whatever damage I need to take for actual competition. So I don't need to learn how to get punched in the face. I don't need to like prove my toughness, right? Like some of that stuff is necessary when you're coming up, but just being a little bit more intelligent of how we approach our sparring, and just structure it and things like that. But I'm getting plenty of training sessions in, I mean, I'm probably getting 6 or 7 team practices, and that doesn't a week, and that doesn't include my strength and conditioning work. And how I'm able to do that is I've built an awesome team at my gym, right? So I have phases where I like go in and I have to put 100% focus and effort onto this one thing to make this happen. And that's like to build my business. I had to go all in there and I couldn't focus on fighting, right? Now I'm in a position where I have a great staff around me. I can leave multiple nights a week and say, "Hey guys, I got to go train. Like, hold it down for me." You know what I mean? And I have that ability. Me and my wife talked about this fight at length before I took it, right? Because for me right now, if she wasn't supportive of it, I would have to be like, you know what, I might not do this. And years ago, I would have never, entertained someone else saying, "Hey, yeah, you shouldn't do this." But with that being said, she fully supports me in this, and she's like, "Don't worry, I'm gonna prep your meals for you. I'll take care of the baby a little bit more." And we both know it's not forever. It's just for the next, 6 or 7 weeks. So it's hard, right? It's tough to balance. I'm up at 5:30 a.m. and I usually have gone out of the house from 8 a.m. to almost 9 p.m. most days of the week. I only take Sundays off, of work and of training. So it's nonstop, but it's all good stuff, and I am able to balance it.
And how much do you love coaching and just motivating people to be in the best shape of your life? I know that's important to you. How much joy do you get out of that?
Oh, I love it, man. I really I'm blessed that I gave myself the opportunity to do what I love, and I see a lot of people kind of give up on their dreams at a young age. And for me, it was just like I never gave myself an out. And I've done all the shit jobs, I did the roofing, I've worked on garbage trucks, I've bounced late nights, I've, painting, like you name it, landscaping, like I've done all those things. But like I always knew that I would eventually just keep going for what I wanted to do and not settle for anything less. And I'm really blessed that I'm in a place where I do that every day. Right. And it's evolved. I get to help people. And I mostly work with general population. I don't work mostly with fighters. I work with people, just everyday people, which in some ways I really enjoy more, because it's when you introduce boxing to someone that had never experienced it and never thought it was something they'd enjoy, it's so cool to just see them light up and be like, wow, like this is something I've needed my whole life. And that's like, it's such a positive release from anxiety and everyday stress, and just a really good focus. And I think it's really powerful to be able to introduce that to people. And as much as I love people, helping people lose weight and gain muscle, like I love helping people just get physically, mentally, spiritually fit. I think that's the coolest thing. And I've just learned a lot through my experiences in life, and life wasn't always easy. And I'm just really happy to be able to share that with other people. And now, as I evolve, as I have young guys working for me now that I'm building up, and I'm teaching them the things that I learned. And I'm like, hey, let me show you the way, like that you can actually do something, maybe not even go to college. Maybe you can do something that you love and kind of give back to others and make money doing it. And you never thought that was, a reality or something that was an option for you. So, now it's even getting bigger, where we're starting to build up the next guys and trying to show them, what I did, and a way of life that they can enjoy what they do.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I got to ask you something else, and maybe you know where I'm going with this, but I'm a ridiculous Celtics fan. I don't know if this is public knowledge or not, but I'm assuming it is. You've been working with Jaylen Brown, which is so freaking cool. Obviously, one of the best basketball players on planet Earth, and really,
Yeah.
hopefully, he's going to be a Celtic for his whole career. I'll be devastated if he ever leaves. What is that like, man? How did that happen? And tell me a little bit about what it's like to work with JB.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Jaylen, his grandfather came over to our club and has was working out there, and he wanted to basically work for us. And next thing I know, I got Jaylen's agents reaching out to me, and we're having phone conversations and this and that. And hey, can you guys make this a reality for us? Can you do this? And I'm like, yeah, I think we can do you. I think we can do Jaylen Brown a favor. Yes. So he's been great, man. He's been great. Me and my family are going to a game this weekend. He's putting us up in a suite. It's pretty cool. And his grandfather's the man. He's a legend. He's in his 80s, cancer survivor, Vietnam vet. He was a boxing coach, just like a man's man. And we get to spend time with him. So it's been a really cool connection. I've really ended up in this cool position. I work with a lot of the Bruins players too, so it's been really cool to be able to teach them some boxing too, where they can actually apply it in their sport.
Oh, of course. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, you can't really box in basketball like you can in hockey. And I don't want to
So
keep hammering this too much because I want to get to this fight here at Combat FC. But again, Sean, I mean, basketball is my first love. I am obsessed with the Celtics. My wife would tell you she's probably rolling her eyes in the other room right now that I'm talking about this. But so, like, have you talked to him about any basketball related stuff as to like what he thinks the Celtics are going to do this year? Like, does he think that, okay, this is our year, we're going to win the championship?
so I haven't really talked to him much about that, and I don't talk to him regularly, but he's been by the club quite a few times, and I've chatted with him at length. And when I chat to people like that, for me, because I'm not as much of a basketball fan, but I am a fan of anyone who is a high performer and an elite performer, and I always want to pick their brains, right? So I've had some conversations with him about just like the work ethic, and just like how honored we are to work with him, and just like everything he's accomplished. And it's just really cool. He's a humble guy. He likes to joke around. You can tell he's having fun, and he works hard. And he's just been chasing this and making it possible for himself for a long time. So
He must move pretty well and smash the pads like an athlete, I'd have to imagine.
yeah, he does. He's got long reach, of course. He's 6'6", so yeah, he knows how to throw. He's a southpaw, and he likes to mix it up for sure. We had him throwing some elbows too. He had fun with it. I guess he's been doing some Muay Thai as well.
Okay, very cool. Well, I had to address that, man. That is so cool.
Of course, that's all good. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's talk about this fight. Combat FC 7, May the 24th. Again, it's going to be for the middleweight title. Yann Oliveira, this guy's undefeated, 4 TKO victories. Break his style down for me. What do you think of him as an opponent? What kind of a matchup do you think we're going to see here?
So funny enough, I got to share this first. I had my daughter's gymnastics tournament, states tournament today. She got fifth place overall, by the way. Have to throw that out there. In New Hampshire today, and I'm looking over, and I look at my wife. I was like, "Does that look like my opponent?" Me and Jan have never met, and Jan is standing over there watching his kid at this gymnastics tournament today. So I went over and we had a great conversation for like 10 minutes. We talked about our kids. We talked about gymnastics. We, talked about how we can't wait to compete with each other. So it was just like so funny and random to see each other there. But as far as a matchup goes, I think it's a good matchup, right? I think it's an exciting fight for the fans, something that I can really get motivated to work for and to push for. And I think he's well-rounded, right, from what I've seen, right? He is 6-0. If you look at his record, he hasn't fought the best competition, right? So his last fight was his toughest fight to date against Ali, which ended by DQ. He got poked in the eye, and I think he had a little damage to his eye. But before then, I think most of his opponents, I don't think any of his opponents before then had winning records. So it doesn't take anything away from his skill set. I've fought some bums myself, right? But it does tell me that maybe he hasn't been truly tested yet. And I want to be the guy that goes in and tests him. And I know that I'm a higher caliber fighter than he has competed with in the past. He's got some good kicks. He moves around a lot. I think he's fairly strong on the ground. I don't see any one particular area that makes us nervous, or like you got to watch out for his when he's on his back on the ground, or you got to watch out for this. I think overall he's just a well-rounded opponent.
So you're not worried about his knockout power or anything with the 4 TKO victories that he has, that you don't feel like that's an area where he might present problems for you?
Right. So I wouldn't say I'm worried about it, but I'm aware of it. And I'm sure he feels the same way about my power. I think that, when 285-pound men that have powerful striking get in the cage, we both have the ability to put each other out. So I am aware of the, dangers that he presents there, but I think that I'm going to be the better guy that night.
Speaking of, 185-pound men, what are you walking around at right now?
186.
Oh, no kidding. So you're basically on championship weight already.
I'm at weight. Yeah. I don't have to cut any weight, which is great. Yeah. I used to walk around more like 195, 200. I might put on a couple pounds before the fight, but our plan is maybe to put on a couple pounds, but I don't need to slow myself down at all. Yann fought his last fight 2 months ago. He weighed in at 168 pounds. So it's not like normally I actually wouldn't compete at 185 anymore, right? I used to, like I said, I used to walk around more like 195, 200 pounds. When I was fighting at 185, but now I stay leaner. I stay, like I said, healthier. And when I cut to 170, it's not even a bad cut. It's 185 to 170. So I'm looking forward to just being strong and not having to cut weight. It's kind of one of those situations where like he's a 170, so am I. And it's like, hey, let's just not cut weight and fight each other on weight, which is kind of the cool opportunity for both of us. Yeah. I think he might be a bit thicker than I am. He might be walking more like 190, 195, but there's not a huge weight discrepancy there.
Okay. I was going to ask, when you saw him face to face earlier today, like what were you guys roughly around the same size? And you're saying that, yeah, you were 5 pounds away, maybe at the most.
Yeah. Of course we were sizing each other up a little bit while we were chatting, I'm sure. But, yeah, he doesn't seem to be that much bigger. And like I said, he weighed in at 168 like 2 months ago. So I don't think he's like a big 185er.
Gotcha. Ultimately, Sean, when you envision this fight, how it ends, what's your prediction? How do you see this fight finishing?
I see my hands raised. And that's the only mindset that I have going in, right? When I was younger, I used to think about like, oh, I'm going to win by knockout, or I'm going to win by submission. I'm going to really specific ways. But I'm just going to go in there. It's a 5-round fight. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to let it all hang out that night. And I'm just going to be the best version of myself. And however I get the victory, whether it's KO, TKO, submission, decision, I'm satisfied with. I don't need to win any specific way. My goal is just to go in and win.
Before we get out of here, I got to ask you about Greg Williams. Obviously, you're very close with Greg, as am I. I absolutely love the man. He told me he's going to be there in attendance to watch you fight for the title. Can you just talk a little bit about the work that you've done with him? I know he told me that you actually donated your fight purse to the organization that he works for to help kids in the past, and that's just really a remarkable thing. Is that something that maybe you're going to do again in the future?
Yeah, yeah. So New Hampshire up conference. Greg Williams, for those that don't know, he was my first sensei, right? He was the first one who introduced me to MMA when I was about 16 years old. And my father, who passed away a few years ago, was also great friends with Greg. So we just have so many amazing memories together. And we actually shared an amazing night at Shriners Auditorium when I was 17 years old. When I don't know if it was called Combat FC then. You might know. Do you remember? Was
Joe
it?
Joe Cav owned the promotion, right? But it was a different name.
It was a different name, yeah. And we went that night, and we had an amazing night. Like the tap out guys were there, Dana White was there. I was 17. It was like just the coolest night. I think like Dan Lozon fought. We sat next to Dean Thomas. It was just like the coolest night ever. But anyway, we have some good memories from that particular venue. But Greg, he's doing some amazing work now with the youth of the North Country. Kids that are at risk of whether they're in abusive homes or they suffer from drug addiction, alcoholism, or at risk of picking up those types of bad habits. And it really hits home for me, and I was so honored to be able to support the cause and to help out with that. I'm actually going up to New Hampshire to speak in front of these kids on May 6th at their conference. So I'm going to share a bit of my experience, strength, and hope, and the struggles that I went through, and hopefully can give them some guidance, to get themselves out of that situation by the things that I learned along the way. It's just so important, I mean, there's so many people out there that are struggling and they just don't know what's the next step to take, and like how good life can be if you take the next right step. And sometimes it does feel hopeless. So I'm looking forward to sharing my story, and I definitely will continue. I'll have them on the back of my t-shirts, and I want to continue to support them and work with Greg how I can. And I'm going to be psyched to see him in the building that night.
Yeah, man, no doubt. Well, congrats again on all the personal, professional success. I can't wait to see you back in there. I'm hoping that maybe I can make it down for May 24th. We'll see what happens. But again, Sean Lally will meet Yann Oliveira at Combat FC 7 for the middleweight strap. Sean, as always, man, I really appreciate your time. It's always great talking to you. Before we do sign off here today, I want to give you the floor. If there's any sponsorships you have that you want to thank or anything else that you want to plug, the floor is yours.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to, for now, I'm just going to shout out my teammates, my wife, who definitely is one of my teammates, my company, Kill, helps anyone kill anything negative in their life. Shout out to Greg and New Hampshire Up Conference. And other than that, we'll be shouting out some other sponsors along the way. But I appreciate everybody's support who's been along for this long journey. And I'm excited to have another highlight night and a great memory for everybody.